Hello! Welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host, Professor Prime. Let me tell you a story, weave you a tale, paint you a picture, as it were. Back when I was younger, back in my college days, I took a particular class, and we'll get to that part later. It's very particular. And in that class, there was a student, and that student had a baby, and that student couldn't find a sitter that day. And so she brought the baby to class. And that baby did what all babies do. It cried. Now, no one said anything. We all remained silent. And I know what you might be thinking. Maybe we were polite. Maybe we didn't want to be rude. Maybe we just understood that babies do what babies do. And maybe we were just really dedicated, hardcore students and we were just like eyes on the prize. And, all of that to an extent. But I'm going to be real with you. Here's my suspicion of what was actually going on there. I feel like we heard that baby cry and we all empathized with it because I feel like on some level, we all felt like we wanted to do the same. We were kind of that same mindset, and you can kind of feel it in a room where it's like, well, you know what, baby? We get you. You go right ahead and cry, because if we could, we would do the same. So I bring that up for a reason, though. Because in my years of teaching and tutoring before that, I came across a lot of other students and then just later students of mine that, they ran into stumbling blocks with math. And that usually was the reason why they didn't like it. They hit some roadblock there, somewhere along the line. And I wanted to bring up my story though, because that class that I mentioned, that class was a math class. That class was real analysis. And if you're wondering what that is, it's a different realm, I'll tell you that. It's a proof class, essentially. It's going a little deeper, and the focus is on taking some concepts with calculus and algebra, and being able to go deeper with that and write proofs surrounding it. It is an interesting course, but when you take a course like that, oof, it is a different realm. And I bring it up in particular, not just because it was a class that I stumbled with, and not just because it was a math class that I stumbled with, although, yes, that's part of it, but because I feel like if you grow up and you didn't hit a snag when you were in algebra, or you didn't hit a snag when you were in calc, if you're doing math, you're probably going to hit it with real analysis, because my experience, that was not unique to me. And I feel like when it comes to algebra, a lot of people hit a snag there because it gets more abstract. And you start to learn how to use all these tools, and there isn't always a great focus on how to use those tools. It's like learning how to hammer and learning how to drill without knowing what those things are. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of people. And so there's no way for really them to connect. And then if you don't get a lot of the algebra early on, it starts snowballing because you'll learn later concepts and not have a strong foundation there, and you have this association with math is something that you can't do, and you start associating negative feelings with it. And I feel like that's a problem for a lot of people, and I feel like when you get a class like real analysis, a lot of us mathematicians, we hit the same snag. Now, you might get that rare person that they didn't have a problem with it, but for the most part, we were used to doing math a certain way. And it's true that a lot of us, we always asked why, we always dug deeper. But when you get into a class like that, it was abstract for us, much like a lot of algebra is abstract for a lot of other people. And so we hit our snag. But it doesn't stop there, right? I feel like if we all knew the answers to everything, we wouldn't have any issues with the Millennium Problems. So what are those? If you hadn't heard of them, there was this place called the Clay Institute, and they, at the turn of the century, at the turn of the new millennium, they came up with 7 problems. And those 7 problems were problems that we were not sure if they could even be solved. We weren't sure if there was a solution to them one way or another. And it ranged from applications to just pure math. And I bring that up because math is the language that we speak about the universe in. And we're building the tools to, talk about it, talk about the universe. And There's a lot that we don't know about the universe, and math is still developing. Like, we have figured out so much, but it's still developing, so we don't know all the answers. Because if we did, there wouldn't be any millennium problems at all, or at the very least, we'd be able to say whether they were solvable or not. And the other thing is, even if you're like really good at math, there might be something else that you're not good at. I think you hit a stumbling block whether you realize it or not, because right, there's so much that exists in this world. It is vast, and the universe even more so. So no one's going to know everything. And my whole thing with math is that for me, I don't think there's anything special about what I do with that. I'd argue there's something special about the way that I teach. I'd argue that. I could see why someone would say that. But for math, I grew up speaking a language. I grew up in the culture. So I think I did have an inclination to it, but I don't think that's something that anyone else couldn't overcome. And I hit a stumbling block and I overcame it. I put in the time, I put in the work, I figured things out, I knew what I wanted to do. And you might not want to continue to follow math. You may not, but it is useful. If not just so you know what's going on in the world, because I assure you there's a lot of other people that are using it to say and do some amazing things. And there are some other people out there that speak that language and are talking about it, but they're saying and doing awful things. And with math, like I said, it comes down to it's how we talk about the world. It's how we talk about the universe. It's no different from any other language. So I think if you are having problems like learning that language, figuring things out with it, if you're having problems with the vocabulary, if you're having problems with the mechanics of it, the syntax, as it were, seek help. There's no shame in that, right? We all are learning. No one comes into this world instinctively knowing how to speak, whether that be English, whether it be Spanish, whether it be math, Japanese, you name it. And so I am hoping that when people watch this video, though, that they can relate and get that I can relate to them too, because I have had stumbling blocks. I've had it in math, I've had it in school, I've had it in life. I'm 32 years old. I'm still figuring stuff out, and that's not something that I thought when I was younger. You know, I assumed that I'd have it all figured out, and I don't. I know people much older than me that feel the same way. You're not alone. It's okay. Don't let it stop you though forever. Push right through that block. Keep on going. Mathergize. That being said, I wanted to bring this video to a close, but I hope that this helped someone in some way, shape, or form. Professor Prime out.